In the infinite darkness of this universe, a small, peaceful planet in the crowd of billions of galaxies, Earth is the ultimate refuge of our existence. But today, we will see this peaceful planet in a different form, in a form that we have never imagined. This is our world today, our civilized life, sparkling with brick walls, mechanical noise, and the light of technology. But today, we will go back a long way, overcoming the history of thousands and thousands of years. Let's turn this wheel of time. Exactly 100,000 years ago, a strange silence all around. This is like another planet. There are no human footprints, no mechanical screams, only mysterious nature. Since there was no air pollution or artificial light sources, the night sky at that time was completely clear. As a result, the galaxy and billions of stars were very clearly visible, which our ancient men also regularly observed. Meteor showers often flowed under that sky full of stars. This natural light of the dark environment of the prehistoric era is very interesting to scientists. Let us go back in time today based on scientific data. Let us take a look back at the world 100,000 years ago. The world 100,000 years ago was completely different from the present. According to geological calculations, this time was included in the Pleistocene era, which is basically known to us as the Ice Age. During this time, a large part of the northern hemisphere was covered under ice. Present-day Canada, North America, Greenland, and the entire northern Europe were several thousand feet below the entire ice layer. The global temperature at that time was much lower than today. Due to the severe cold climate of the North and South Poles, severe snowstorms and extremely cold weather prevailed in these regions most of the year. Due to the large amount of water being converted into ice and frozen on the land, the water level of the ocean dropped about 400 feet or 120 meters lower than today. The decrease in seawater brought about major changes in the geographical map of the world. The Bering Sea between present-day Siberia and Alaska dried up completely and became a huge land bridge. Similarly, the present-day Persian Gulf and the North Sea of Europe were not seas at that time, but were very fertile plains surrounded by rivers and plants. Due to the excessive decrease in temperature in winter, the flow of large rivers in many regions would completely stop, and the water would freeze and turn into a layer of solid ice. However, there was no ice everywhere on the Earth. In the regions some distance from the equator, there were vast dry grasslands, or grasslands in scientific terms, which are known as Mammoth steppes. Even in this hostile climate, the Earth's internal activities were active. As a result, lava and ash were often erupted from the volcanoes in the ice-covered region. In short, the climate and geography of the Earth 100,000 years ago were extremely extreme and changeable, and it was through this hostile environment that all the vast animal kingdoms of the world were developing at that time. Even in this extreme climate of the Ice Age, our Indian subcontinent had a different form of nature. At that time, the geography of this region was much greener and wilder than it is today. The Himalayas, located at the northern end of the subcontinent, were much more snow-covered than they are today. Due to the severe winters, the glaciers extended quite close to the foothills of the mountains. The Indus and Ganges rivers, which originate from the Himalayas, were completely unpolluted and unspoiled. Without any man-made barriers, the crystal-clear water of these rivers flowed at a rapid speed towards the plains. There were miles and miles of dense and evergreen tropical rainforests along both banks of the rivers. This vast forest helped to keep the climate of the subcontinent moist. Numerous wild animals lived within these dense forests. The ancestors of the present-day Asian elephants roamed the forests of this subcontinent in groups at that time. However, at that time, an extinct species of giant elephant called Paleoloxodon also existed in the Indian subcontinent. These elephants with straight and long tusks were much larger than the present-day elephants. The ancient Saraswati River, now extinct underground, flowed majestically through the heart of northwestern India at that time and kept a large part of this region fertile. The Deccan Plateau, located in the southern part of the subcontinent, was also surrounded by rugged mountains of ancient volcanic rocks and unique geographical diversity at that time. After the extinction of the dinosaurs, in this Pleistocene era, mammalian predators were at the top of the forest food chain. The early ancestors of tigers and cheetahs lived in these forests. The climate of the Middle East, or the Arabian region, was not the same as it is today 100,000 years ago. Scientific studies have shown that the geography of this region was completely different during the Pleistocene era. At that time, the Arabian Peninsula was not a hot desert, but rather a vast collection of miles of green grasslands, large natural lakes, and fertile oases. At that time, herds of wild camels roamed freely in these pastures of the now dry desert, and due to the abundant rainfall, there were permanent water bodies, due to which aquatic animals like hippos survived effortlessly in this extremely dry region today. The same picture could be seen in the famous Sahara region of Africa. 100,000 years ago, the Sahara was not a sea of sand, rather it was a vast fertile plain surrounded by a network of rivers and lakes. Due to this fertile environment, the early ancestors of the modern elephants and giraffes lived in groups in the heart of the ancient Sahara. At that time, large birds of prey flew in the sky of the open savanna and hunted small mammals of the plains from above. There was a large number of herbivores in these grasslands of Africa. Various species of wildebeest, deer, and antelopes lived by drinking the water of these permanent lakes. Due to the influence of the tropical monsoon winds, these regions often experienced severe storms and lightning. Due to this regular rainfall, these vast plains of Arabia and Africa remained green and fresh. After the storm, nature would calm down again. In this way, through the regular cycle of climate, the Arab and African continents of 100,000 years ago survived as a paradise for wild animals. However, this form of green Arabia and the Sahara was not permanent. About 5,000 to 7,000 years ago, the angle of rotation of the Earth's axis changed slightly. As a result, the seasonal rains in this region stopped completely and the permanent water bodies gradually started drying up. Due to the lack of rain, the forests were destroyed and the soil became loose. Strong stormy winds blew that dry soil and dust miles and deposited it. In this way, the once green pastures have turned into our Chinese rough and hot sand deserts today. 100,000 years ago, the rainforest or evergreen forest of the Amazon basin of South America was much denser and darker than it is today. This vast forest was a refuge for billions of wild animals at that time. Sunlight could not reach the inner part of this forest of Niebuhr directly. Only through the gaps in the branches of the trees did the rays of light fall. A strange mammal called Glyptodon lived in this forest. These animals, the size of a small car, looked like modern-day armadillos and had hard bone armor on their backs.
Grand Canyon of North America was completely primitive at that time. Due to the severe winters of the Ice Age, ice accumulated in the upper part of the canyon's rocky valley, and the Colorado River flowed through its chest. At that time, a huge deer called the Irish elk lived in the snow-covered desert of North America. The antlers of these extinct deer were about 12 feet wider than those of today's deer. Being completely isolated from other lands, the nature and evolution of the Australian continent were completely different. At that time, the dry and red soil desert of this region was completely wild. At that time, a species of giant kangaroo called Procopodon lived in the grasslands of Australia. These extinct kangaroos were about 3 meters or 10 feet tall. At the top of the food chain on this continent was a giant carnivorous lizard called Megalania. Twice as large as the modern Komodo dragon, this reptile was one of the main predators of its time. At the same time, the bottom of the world's oceans was very rich. Since there was no human-made pollution, the coral reefs of that time were much more colorful and vibrant than today. In the deep blue waters of the ocean, the early ancestors of modern whales swam in groups. Thus, a vast and diverse animal world reigned not only on land, but also on the ocean floor 100,000 years ago.
The ice-covered northern hemisphere of the Pleistocene era was dominated by megafauna, or large mammals. The most famous of these was the woolly mammoth. To protect themselves from the cold, their entire bodies were covered in a thick, greasy layer of fur, and the long, curved teeth on their heads helped them dig through the ice to find food. Along with the mammoths, one of the main and fierce predators of this era was the saber-toothed tat. They hunted during the Ice Age with a strong, muscular body. The most notable feature of these extinct predators were the two long, sharp canine teeth on their upper jaws. These were used to hunt large animals like deer or bears. At that time, a giant animal called the giant ground sloth lived by eating the plants of the forest. These extinct ancestors of today's small sloths were as big as elephants. Cave bears, or cave burrs, took shelter in caves for protection during the winter. They were much larger and heavier than the current bears. Olorhinos, or Lomosagondas, also lived in this icy wilderness. Their entire body was covered in thick fur, and the long horns on their heads were used to remove snow and find food. One of the group predators was the dire wolf, or the ancient Necris group. They were larger than the current Necris and had much stronger jaws. In short, the world 100,000 years ago was the real kingdom of these giant megafauna, or monstrous animals. However, it was on this difficult stage of nature that the early human species were slowly developing. In addition to Homo sapiens, at least 4 to 5 different species of humans existed in the world 100,000 years ago, and each was adapted to survive in its own environment. Neanderthals were specially adapted to survive in the cold of Europe and Asia. They were very strong, with heavy eyebrows, broad noses, and muscular bodies. Neanderthals could make highly advanced and sharp tools from stone and bone. These tools helped them hunt large wild animals. At the same time, another mysterious human species called Denisovans lived inside. A very short man named Homo floresiensis lived on the Indonesian island of Flores. Due to their isolation on the island, they evolved to be only 3 feet tall. To survive, Neanderthals hunted large, monstrous animals in groups. They would trap animals like mammoths or woolly rhinos and attack them with rain. To protect themselves from the cold, Neanderthals wore clothing made of wild animal skins and bones. These species were very intelligent and fought for survival like ours. Even 100,000 years ago, art and faith were born in the minds of primitive people. Neanderthals began to paint pictures or drawings of some of their earliest prey on cave walls with animal fat and blood. While other human species were evolving in different parts of the world, our own species, Homo sapiens, was developing in the fertile savannas of Africa. The faces of these ancestors were somewhat softer and different from those of the Neanderthals. Their well-developed chins and large brains were suitable for complex thought and communication. About 100,000 years ago, small groups of Homo sapiens first left Africa and spread to Asia and other parts of the world. Compared to other species, sapiens learned to make much finer, lighter, and more precise long-range hunting tools using stone and bone. In addition to hunting, collecting fruits and tubers was very important in sapien society. Women knew exactly which plants in the forest were edible and which were medicinal. In river or coastal areas, sapiens mastered the technique of hunting fish and other aquatic animals, which played a major role in meeting their nutritional needs. One of the greatest characteristics of sapiens was their ability to think symbolically. They started making the first aesthetic jewelry or necklaces from animal bones and shells. However, this journey was not easy. Sapiens had to survive every moment by fighting extremely adverse weather conditions, deadly diseases, and other ferocious predators. Thus, on their way to Asia and Europe, Homo sapiens met other primitive human species. A new and complex chapter in the history of mankind began. After traveling this long journey of 100,000 years, humans have conquered the world today. But what do you think? Standing in the era of current climate change and the nuclear age, will humans be able to survive on this Earth for the next 100,000 years? Share your opinion in the comments. Thank you.